This movie will look at IDs and schedules in WinDoor 13, and most of this stuff is new, so if you're an existing WinDoor user, it's probably a good idea to pay attention. Let's begin with a drawing here that has some doors and windows on it, and let's say it's up to a stage now where you want to put in some IDs. I guess there are a few ways of doing this. You can automate the process, and you can do it with a two-way worksheet, but the first way we'll look at is using the WinDoor ID tool. And before we begin, we need to choose what ID symbol we want to use for doors and windows. We can do this by selecting one window object, clicking IDs and schedules, clicking on ID symbols, and then choosing which door ID we want to use and which window ID. So let's go ahead and choose, say, the circle and the hexagon. And what we then want to do, we've chosen this for this particular object that's selected here, and we want to apply this to all the settings in the file. Now this is a shortcut to actually having to go back and then click copy and apply. So either you can click this button here and then we'll ask you to apply the settings, or after setting them for this one object with the object still selected, you can click copy or apply and go copy from selected object, apply to all window objects, active layer only, and then just choose the things that you want, which is the ID settings. And let's click OK. And just to confirm that that's transferred those settings, let's choose another object and click on IDs and schedules, and you can see that we've got the same settings there. Okay, we're ready to begin. Let's go back to the annotations toolset, or this might also be called DIMS notes. Select the WinDoor ID tool, and the first thing you want to do is to click the preferences button. The first four fields here indicate what the current ID number is going to be. So at this point, if I was to start adding IDs for doors, the first one I add would be number 8, and then it would increment to 9, 10, 11. Let's say we want to begin at 1 for doors and 1 for windows. I'm just going to click OK to that and select an object on the drawing here to make this a little bit easier. Okay. The next setting here is automatically turn on display ID. That is going to automatically check this box when you place an ID. Automatically set on schedule choice. What this is going to do is to set this on schedule to window, door, combination unit, or whatever. So this will automatically choose the schedule that that particular object is going into. That's not to say you can't change it later, but that's a starting point. We'll look at this option later. Set center ID off window object. What this will do is to automatically position the ID in the center of the window object, regardless of where you click to put it. The second option will automatically offset the ID by the amount here. That's about 20 inches. And that will be from the center of the wall to where the ID is going to be placed. So let's go with those settings, and then all we do is to click on the door or window we want to ID and then click, and it's automatically going to get placed in the center and with that offset distance that we specified, so it doesn't actually matter where the second click is. Now I can go around and quickly just click somewhere near. Now you'll notice that I don't have to worry about doing the doors first and then the windows. It automatically, you'll see here, it automatically is recognizing these as windows and recognizing these as doors and using the appropriate ID symbol that we had chosen. Let's continue on our merry way. So we'll go around the perimeter of the building clockwise, and then we'll come in and do the internal doors. And we're just about done. Okay, Now let's take a peek at those settings again. You'll see that the current door number has been incrementing and the current window number has also been incrementing. Now let's say that we want to reposition these three internal doors here so that the ID is in the center. So what we'll do is reposition ID only, and we'll turn off the fixed offset. Now when I come here and I can click on a door or window and just click in the position that I want it to go, and it's going to reposition the ID but not alter the ID number. So that just allows you to alter IDs that, maybe this ID was over another piece of text or something and you needed to move it out a little bit more or whatever. That's what the tool then allows you to do, is to just play around with the position. Because mostly you will be able to auto position the IDs. Alright, so now we've got the IDs on the drawing. Let's take another look at the ID and Schedules dialog, and now you'll see that this has been populated with all of the window IDs that we've used in the drawing on this layer, or on all layers in the drawing, and there's some other IDs in there. Now you'll notice that when I switched from active layer only to all layers, some red items appeared here, and this indicates that number 0 has been used a number of times, and so they're duplicates, and so we'd have to deal with that. Let's stick with this layer. And you might come to this layer and go, look, I wish I'd started the ID numbers at 10 on this layer, or I want to start them at 50 or whatever. So if we indicate here that we say we wanted to change the numbering from where we had it and start at 20, you'll notice here that this is the proposed numbering that we're going to see when we click this button here. And the other thing I could do is I might say, look, I know that was number 2, but I need it to be down here at number 6. So we've changed the order here just by putting the cursor in here and click dragging. And by the way, if you shift click, you can click multiple items, or if you control click or Apple click on a Mac, you can select non-contiguous items in the list. But anyway, you can drag things up and down in the list, and this is telling us the type of door or window it is and what layer it's on. Once I've got this list looking as I want it, I can click Update IDs on drawing to match list and confirm that I want to do that, and you'll see that now my existing list matches my new list, and we're done. When I click OK, the IDs on the drawing are going to update accordingly. You can see this is now 20, this is 24, and so on. Now let's take a look at what would happen if you duplicated a door or window that already had an ID, and in this case let's choose a door and we'll just duplicate this and put it up here. So we've now got 2D05s. Let's select this one. Well, actually let's select the duplicate and then click on our IDs and schedules, and you see we're now getting a list of the doors, and there are 2 that are red, indicating that that door has been duplicated, or that number has been duplicated. So we need to do something about this. Now if you wanted this to just take on, to readjust the list from this point on, you would just click Update IDs, and the 5 would become 6, 6 would become 7, 7 become 8, but we actually want this to go to the bottom of the list, so we can click and drag it down to the bottom of the list, and then we can go Update IDs to match the drawing, and the things are going to change. Alternatively, we could have come in here and changed the number, given that it was a simple change to make. Now let's look at this dialog in more detail. We've got the display ID, which is the same as the display ID down here, and the schedule that's going on. We've got an option of 4 schedules: door, window, combo, other. Now just because they're named like this doesn't mean that you have to use them for this, but you may want to schedule existing doors or doors for removal or something like that. So you could use one of these to indicate doors that were going to be scheduled in that way. Here we're getting a readout of the full ID. In other words, this is the ID with the prefix and with whatever we have set here for leading zeros. That's just to you know what it's going to look like on the drawing. When you choose the ID symbols, you have the option of setting like a default door prefix and possibly a suffix as well. On a case-by-case basis, you can override that suffix by adding something different. You'll notice that when I click this box, this ID here changes, and this one also changes down here to indicate that we've got a special ID going on here. Now this could be because it's a particular type of door or window that needs to be marked as special, and you want to modify, or you want to do that by modifying the standard prefix and or the standard suffix. We don't need to do that, so we'll turn that off. The next thing I want to look at is what can happen with these different two-line IDs that we have here. And this is probably best demonstrated on a window here. I'll select this window, and let's say that we, as well as having the door number, or sorry, the window number there, we want to know what kind of door or window it is. So what we can do is to click the IDs and schedules, and let's change the window symbol from using the single line one to using a double line one. And we'll choose this one here in the box. Then we need to choose what we want to display in this bottom field here, and we do this by checking the box there, and then we can choose what to display. Now if we choose WinDoor type full or short, you'll get either the full description, which is what you see in this menu here, or the short one. We'll go for the short one. Let's click OK, and you'll see now that this is displaying the window number and giving us an indication of what kind of window it is. If I happen to change this to say a double hung, then this is obviously going to change as well. Now if I wanted to apply that to all the windows on this layer, then of course I can use the copy or apply. Let's go ahead and do that. Copy or apply, copy from selected, apply to all windows, active layer only, and we don't want many of these settings, so we'll turn them all off and then just turn on the ID settings. Click OK, and now you'll see that all of the doors and windows, all of the windows are displaying that new ID. Now let's look at one of the other options in this setup here, and here we're using WinDoor type the short, and this is what the text is going to appear, or this is the text that's going to appear. Let's choose something that's a bit longer, like the unit width by unit height, for example. So this is going to put in this number here, and obviously that isn't going to fit into the field here. That's why we have this scale factor here, and looking at that, it probably needs to be about twice as wide as it is now. So we can put a scale factor here of 2, which then makes this pop-up here available and allows us to scale just the width. And so we'll go ahead and scale the width. Sometimes you might want to scale the width and height, and other times you want to scale the whole ID. That's why we have those three options. So let's go with this now. Scale the width only by 2, click OK, and that's going to fit the text into the ID. Again, if we wanted to then apply that to the other IDs I've already placed, we could click copy or apply, copy from selected, apply to all windows, and click none, ID settings, OK. And we've got some that we need to adjust here, like this one here. By the way, I didn't say that you could actually just pick up an ID and drag it, which of course you can as well, because it has that its own handle on it. Now the IDs are also automatically classed. You'll see here in the classes and pens dialog that we have ID labels in the ID class. So that means that if I do turn off the ID class, then the labels will all disappear and reappear. So this allows you to turn them on and off very quickly in a viewport if you don't want to see them. Now the other way that you can alter door and window numbers is by via a two-way worksheet. But before we look at worksheets, let's take a look at one of the other features in the IDs and Schedules dialog, and that's the Schedule Data tab. Now this tab here allows you to add specific information about a particular door or window that is not normally listed as part of the door or window record. For example, you can put a manufacturer's name in here just by clicking in here and typing a name, and you could put a model number if you wanted to. Just make up a number there. You'll see here that it's already reporting the glazed area, and currently we have selected this window here, so if we need to schedule a glazed area, there it is already calculated, and that's going to update obviously if we change the style of the door or window. Now in these user fields you can really use these for anything you want. For example, you could add some custom notes about a particular door or window. You could say whether it had a fly screen. You could add hardware information or a hardware key that you would then relate to a hardware schedule or specification. And these the names in this field here can be customized. So let's say in this one here you wanted to say what sort of hardware set it had. So just for your own use, you can call this hardware, so you know that when you open this dialog, the value that is listed here is going to refer to the hardware set. And let's put a hardware set in there, and I'll just make this up again. HS 123, you know, whatever key that you use. Now the other thing that we can also do with these is to use a preset value, and if we click preset value, then we can choose from one of these here. Now if this was a door, then you might want to actually display the actual door width or height, or door height by door width or something like that. Now this is actually a window, so we wouldn't use that in this field in this case, but one thing I will say is that if there is some other custom combination of information that you do want to see in this list, just send me an email and tell me, and I can code it in for the next version. I'm sure there are some other things here that would be useful to derive from the information that you see here or in any of the other dialogues. So we've got a little bit of extra information here, and let's go ahead with this one, and we'll put it back here, and let's just call it screen, and maybe for the next one we'll call this egress compliant. And this can just be a yes, and same here. Let's say no for that one. Now apart from these two here, model and manufacturer, when you're actually looking through the schedule to set it up, you are going to see these listed as user 1 to 15, so you will have to remember that user 1 is hardware, user 2 is screen, and so on. So when you've got this set up and used as many of these fields as you want, and remember this is a window, let's click OK, and we want all the windows to have that information attached to them. So again we can go copy or apply, copy from selected object, apply to all windows, active layer only, and we'll choose none, and then we can choose here scheduled data labels and optionally scheduled data. So this will give us the labels that we put on there, for example, you know, screen, egress compliant, and so on. And this would also copy the scheduled data. Let's just copy the labels to the other windows. Click OK. Now if I select another window in the file and click on IDs and Schedules and go to the Schedule tab, you'll see that we've got the hardware, egress, screen, egress compliant, and so on. And you could then enter the information in that you needed for this particular one. And by the way, you can also enter this information in the two-way worksheet. But before we look at worksheets, let's take a look at one of the other features in the IDs and Schedules dialog, and that's the Schedule Data tab. Now this tab here allows you to add specific information about a particular door or window that is not normally listed as part of the door or window record. For example, you can put a manufacturer's name in here just by clicking in here and typing a name, and you could put a model number if you wanted to. Just make up a number there. You'll see here that it's already reporting the glazed area, and currently we have selected this window here, so if we need to schedule a glazed area, there it is already calculated, and that's going to update obviously if we change the style of the door or window. Now in these user fields you can really use these for anything you want. For example, you could add some custom notes about a particular door or window. You could say whether it had a fly screen. You could add hardware information or a hardware key that you would then relate to a hardware schedule or specification. And these the names in this field here can be customized. So let's say in this one here you wanted to say what sort of hardware set it had. So just for your own use, you can call this hardware, so you know that when you open this dialog, the value that is listed here is going to refer to the hardware set. And let's put a hardware set in there, and I'll just make this up again. HS 123, you know, whatever key that you use. Now the other thing that we can also do with these is to use a preset value, and if we click preset value, then we can choose from one of these here. Now if this was a door, then you might want to actually display the actual door width or height, or door height by door width or something like that. Now this is actually a window, so we wouldn't use that in this field in this case, but one thing I will say is that if there is some other custom combination of information that you do want to see in this list, just send me an email and tell me, and I can code it in for the next version. I'm sure there are some other things here that would be useful to derive from the information that you see here or in any of the other dialogues. So we've got a little bit of extra information here, and let's go ahead with this one, and we'll put it back here, and let's just call it screen, and maybe for the next one we'll call this egress compliant. And this can just be a yes, and same here, let's say no for that one. Now apart from these two here, model and manufacturer, when you're actually looking through the schedule to set it up, you are going to see these listed as user 1 to 15, so you will have to remember that user 1 is hardware, user 2 is screen, and so on. So when you've got this set up and used as many of these fields as you want, and remember this is a window, let's click OK, and we want all the windows to have that information attached to them. So again we can go copy or apply, copy from selected object, apply to all windows, active layer only, and we'll choose none, and then we can choose here scheduled data labels and optionally scheduled data. So this will give us the labels that we put on there, for example, you know, screen, egress compliant, and so on, and this would also copy the scheduled data. Let's just copy the labels to the other windows, click OK. Now if I select another window in the file and click on IDs and Schedules and go to the Schedule tab, you'll see that we've got the hardware, egress, screen, egress compliant, and so on. and you could then enter the information in that you needed for this particular one. And by the way, you can also enter this information in the two-way worksheet. Let's take a look now at the construction of the actual ID symbols themselves. As mentioned previously, these live in a folder in the default content library, so in the Vectorworks 2008 folder, Libraries, Defaults, and you'll see here WinDoor, and they are in this file here, or any other files that you happen to put in this folder. And also, as mentioned previously, if you're going to customize this file, then I suggest you transfer it over to the WinDoor folder in your user folder. Don't have it in both locations, otherwise when you're using the ID symbols, the list will have each symbol listed twice. So let's have a look at that file, and this is how it will look when you open the symbols file. This layer is at 1:1, and you should always edit these symbols at 1:1. And these ones here are the 1:50 ones. Up here I've got an example of a 1:100 one. Let's take a look at these 1:50 ones first, and we'll just double click to edit, and that will jump us into edit symbol mode, and it's literally just a circle and a block of text. That's all there is. The class is the none class, because the class will be allocated by the WinDoor object as per your choice made in the classes in the WinDoor classes dialog. For the text, for the IDs that have two text blocks in them, let's take a look at that. Again, it's just simple geometry, circle, line, and two blocks of text. And the way that we differentiate the blocks of text is that you bring the block of text that is not the ID number to the front. So just select this block of text, right click, send to front. Now you could also just send this one to the back, but if this happened to have a fill to it and we sent this to the back, I'll get it right, there we go, send to back, it's going to disappear behind the fill here. So that's why it's easier to bring this one to the front. Let's just undo those two steps. Now if you want to put static text in a symbol, then you can just add the text with the text tool. And set its attributes and so on. And so that it isn't seen as a block of text for either the ID or this additional field here, you need to group it. Just go group, and it's now a group, not a text block, and that's how it will be seen. So this will just be dealt with as a block of text, so it will just come in with text, or with the text that you have defined within this symbol. Obviously we don't want that, so we'll click exit. Now you can't just scale down these IDs from 1:50 to say 1:100, because if you do that, the text will get too small. So you've got to make an allowance for the IDs that you create at different scales. And the best thing to do is to just take an existing ID. So if we look in the resource browser here, here are the existing IDs, and just right click and edit and change the object, or right click and duplicate if you want to make one that's similar. So let's finally pull all of this together and produce a schedule. Now just before we do that, I want to look at one other aspect of the door here in IDs and schedules, and for this door I've actually set up some fields here. For user 1 I've used door height, and as a preset value I'm getting it to enter the door height as opposed to the overall size. The door width for user 2, the door thickness for user 3, the hardware set for user 4, then screen, glazing and comments for 5, 6 and 7. I set these up for one door object. I want to apply those to the other door objects. So we'll click copy or apply, copy from selected, apply to all doors, active layer only, scheduled data labels, click OK. Now there is a pre-configured WinDoor schedule that actually lives in the WinDoor ID symbols file. Now everyone does schedules slightly differently, so this is a sample schedule that you'll probably have to modify to get it to do exactly what you want, but this will give you an idea of how you can set them up. So here it is here. I'm looking at the contents of the WinDoor ID symbols file, and I happen to have that file open at the moment. You'll see it's under open files here, but if you didn't have the file open, then you would need to have it listed here in default content to be able to copy a resource, in this case the worksheet, from that file into our current file, which is WinDoor 13. So we're ready to do this. Right click on this, choose import, and that's imported it into our active file. Click the home button here, which will take us back to our active file, and here we are back in this file, and here's the worksheet that's imported. Let's go ahead and open this now, and you'll see that it's been populated with the door and window information from this file. Let's first talk about the organization of this. I've got the worksheet split into two sections. Here we've got windows and here we've got doors. This row here contains all the formulas that are giving us the window information. This row here contains all the information that's all the formulas that's giving us our information for our doors. I've got slightly different things in each of these. Windows, for example, we've only got the frame height and frame width. For doors, we've got frame height and frame width plus the leaf size and the thickness. We've got glazed area here reporting for some of the doors that are glazed, and same for windows over here. And you'll notice that some of these fields are blank. That's because I'm actually going to enter the information for these in the schedule here. Now, in order to get a listing of just doors or windows, you need to edit the formula, and you do that by making sure that you've got database header rows showing. This needs to have a tick beside it, and then you mouse down here and a menu will appear and you choose edit criteria. For technical reasons we have to do the editing in the data bar here, and here's the formula that's giving us the information that we see here. This is a database row and it's listing the WinDoor 6 items. Now here's the piece of the formula that's determining that it's just showing the windows. WinDoor 6 on schedule equals window. And I've also added a final field here, L equals N1. L stands for layer and N1 stands for cell number L1, which is this cell here, N and 1. So that is cell N1. So whatever text I type in there, in this case I've typed the layer name, then this formula is going to display the items that match that layer name there. Now if you just want to derive the windows or doors from all layers in the drawing, then you can simply delete that part of the formula there just by pressing delete and then clicking the tick box here. But we'll leave that in because we only want to list the windows on one layer. Let's look at the same thing in the doors worksheet. Mouse down here, edit criteria, click OK, and you'll see it's pretty much the same except on schedule equals door, so that's saying door instead of window, and this, instead of saying N1, it's saying N5 because this is N5, just in case the doors and windows were on different layers, which have probably they're not going to be. But alright, now the other formulas then can be seen by just clicking in the formulas for each column here. This is the ID number, the ID type short, unit height, unit width, glazed area, and so on. That's the user 1 field, manufacturer, supplier, model. That's the user 2 field, user 3, user 5, and user 6. And here we've got a similar thing, but you'll see here that the user fields are slightly differently distributed. Now, a couple of things. This is not sorting in order of the ID numbers, and in order to do that, we need to put the sort icon into this column just by dragging it down like that, and these are now sorting in the correct order. Let's do the same for doors. We select the whole database header row, we take the ascending sort icon, we drag it in there, and we get it sorting correctly. Now the hardware, here I've only entered the hardware for a couple of these windows, but if there were, say, several of the windows that had the same hardware set, then you can right click, copy, choose the cells that have the same hardware set, right click, paste, and that will fill these cells, and it will also put that information back into the windows on the drawing. We've got the manufacturer filled out here. The model, if there was a model number, we could enter that as well. Screen, yes. Egress, no. Glazing, so here you could go down and enter the glazing type, so it might be float, and maybe that's the same on a number of these, but there might be one that requires safety glass or something like that, so obviously your double glazing or something like that. So you can enter those in here, and of course in here you can enter any comments. Down here for the doors, we've got the glazed area. Now you might want to see for the glazed area here the unit mark after this, and here as well. If you select these here, and you can press the Apple key or the Control key and do non-contiguous selections, so I can select these two sections here, and I want to edit these so that they're showing meters squared. So with them both selected, I right click, choose Format Cells, and under Number I put in a trailer, and you might also want to actually round this to maybe 1 decimal place. So let's round it to 1 decimal place and put in a trailer of meters squared or feet squared or whatever you need. Click OK, and that's going to add that and round those things up or down appropriately. So again, here we could go into screen and add yes or no for the items that have a screen, and what kind of glazing we've got, and put in any comments that we want right here in the database worksheet. Now, I mentioned previously in this movie that you can also edit the door and window numbers, and you can do that in this field here. I have these two yellow fields here as kind of a bit of a cheat sheet, because I can put my layer name in here, but obviously I don't want, and also just the door or window numbers, but I don't want these to appear in the schedule, and I'll show you how you can deal with that in a moment. If you look at these, the ID numbers here, you can't edit the ID number from here because this is actually a combination of 3 different fields: the prefix field, the leading 0 field, and the actual number field. So if you change any of these, they won't alter on the drawing or in this worksheet. If you want to change the door or window numbers, you need to change them from this position here. Now, because this list is sorting by ID number, if I do change an ID number that would change its position in the sort, then as soon as I change it, it's instantly going to resort into that order. So for example, if I made this ID number 1 here 7, it will immediately drop to the bottom of the list. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll type a 7 there, hit enter, and you can see that the 7 has now come to the bottom of the list, and this was the one that was previously and you see this number here has changed as well. It's also changed on the drawing. So that's how you can edit ID numbers in this position as well. We'll go and undo that because I was actually happy with how it was before. So if you don't want to see these in the schedule, you can literally just collapse these columns and they won't appear. You do that by putting the cursor over the join between the two columns and dragging it as far as it goes to the left, and then doing the same thing here. And if we want to just show this on the drawing, we'd probably also want to turn off database header rows, and we'll close it down, and you can then see we have our schedule there on the drawing. To open it up again, to do some more editing, we can double click it, and if we want these fields to come back, just move the cursor in from the right hand side until it changes shape, click and drag, you'll get the first column. Do the same thing again, just come in from the right, when the cursor changes, drag out, and you'll get the second column there for editing.